Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond Trade podcast. Today, we are joined by Bryan Michelson, Fit Coach Bryan on Instagram, and we're here for episode 12. I'm just shocked that the episodes are going up so quickly, and I'm just so happy with it so far, guys. And I love all the feedback and everything. So I really appreciate you guys. I just want to start with a quick little note there. But we're not going to dilly dally. We're going to get right into it. Bryan Michelson, thank you so much for coming on.
Love it, man. Thanks for having me, and yeah, well done on the podcast. I mean, you mentioning episode 12. There's some crazy stat out there, like 90% of podcasts don't get past 3 episodes, and then when you get to 21 episodes, you're in the top 1%. So, yeah, you're nearly there. Keep it
That's
up.
awesome. That's great. I love that stat.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
perfect. Cool.
No, no,
All
but thank
right. So yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So Brian, we always start the podcast off with getting a little definition from the guest, right? I always ask the guest to kind of define health and what health means to you, right? And it's usually not, a really short form answer. It's usually pretty holistic and just but it gives us great insight onto what the guests really are into, right? Because you kind of tell it from your perspective and your expertise. So I just want to ask you, what does health mean to you in the greater sense?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's a big, broad question, but yeah, I love it. And in terms of finding solutions to health, I really think it's behind us. And to me, the true health of us as humans, our physical health, energy, drive, passion, it came, it's behind us, right? And these further like technological advancements, everyone's getting into real technical, trying to tweak the chemistry of the body and the mind. And there's so much nuance to it, but really like the main health that we're all missing, it's in the practices of our ancestors and of our past. So, I really dive deep into the movement patterns, this posture and alignment of our body, the way we're designed to move can really get rid of a lot of physical dis-ease, joint pain, wear and tear, need for surgery that's happening today, and it's rampant. That's just going back to the way we're designed to move through our evolution, childhood development. There's a way we move that we're missing now, and we've moved away from. So we've lost our health. So what is health? Health, in that physical sense, is returning back to it. Nutrition, and these lifestyle practices, they're also kind of simple. It's just like, hey, what were we supposed to do? What have we evolved to do? Let's go do that again. And you're a preacher of exactly that. So it's a fun topic.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, and it is a large topic, and um, what I'm realizing really, and I've kind of been coming to this conclusion for a while now, is health is really multifaceted.
Mm.
It's the physical body, but you can even approach the physical body from so many different ways. Like you, in my mind, are an expert on these natural movement patterns, which is what I really love most about your work. But you're also into so much more than that. Like I saw that you butcher your own animals, and you're into the more native way of eating, right? The natural human diet, and so I love that too, right? It's not just one thing, right? It's always more than just that. It's so multifaceted. So yeah, I kind of want to know about your story though. I want to know what kind of brought you here, right? And so you're big. You have a big focus on movement and these natural movement patterns, from what I understand. So I kind of want to know like what led you here, and you can take it as far back as you want to go. I know we were talking about you being born in South Africa and some your father being a part of safaris and such. So maybe
Yeah.
you could even get into that a little bit and then really bring it back, and we'll talk about that more, the movement. So.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's a part of my story, and a lot of even what I do today, yeah, originated there. So yeah, I I grew up in Zambia. So when I was born in South Africa, but my dad was already living in Zambia with my mum, and you know, I went to South Africa just to be born, but really back into Zambia, and my dad was running safari. So I grew up out in the bush in an area called the Luangwa Valley, was where my dad was running safaris, and it's a really nutritious, beautifully diverse, wild area, and everyone hears of the Serengeti in Kenya, which is the real like Lion King, big plains of animals, and the reason that area, that land is so nutritious is there's a volcanic scar that moves through Africa, and it has all these nutrients that fed the land, fed the plants, which fed the animals, and it's just like there's the reason there's so much life there. And this volcanic scar moves through Africa, and the tail end of it is in Zambia. And that tail end of the scar makes what is called the Luangwa Valley. And that's where my dad was running safaris, and it's just beautiful, like lion, leopard, hippo, buffalo, all these beautiful plains animals, and yeah, just true wildlife. So yeah, I grew up around that, and yeah, I was very comfortable with the cycles of life and death. Learned a lot from being around that. So it was really like connected to nature. So a lot of these ancestral practices coming full circle is just like, oh yeah, that's obvious. Of course, that's the way we're supposed to do things. Um, and when I grew up outdoors, always outdoors, barefoot, eating well, had a lot of energy, outdoors in the sun, and I was just like this really energetic kid and very athletic. So when I went to school, I was just like a little more energetic than the rest, like really bouncy and kind of bulletproof, couldn't get hurt. Any sport I tried my hand at, I did really well in. Could run long, swim long, ended up playing water polo and rugby. And it was because of my upbringing, because of being outdoors, because of being barefoot. That's why I was so athletic. But then went to high school after primary school in Zambia, where I was like in and out of school, mainly in the safari areas. Whenever there was good safaris going on, my dad would take me out of school. So I was like, it wasn't a real big focus for me, primary school. But then I went to high school, which was like, yeah, yeah, I was very lucky. My dad would I would just get on the bush plane from Lusaka, which is where our family home was, and went to school near around there. And we'll get on the bush plane and go out to the safari area. It's just like, yeah, skip a few weeks of school, no worries. So yeah, that was fun. But yeah, after primary school, I went to high school in South Africa, and I was at a boarding school, and it was an old school, traditional boarding school. Wore uniforms, wore the tight leather shoes, were in desks and chairs all day. And for the first time, I started to like get a bit rigid, tight, stiff, and started towards the tail end of high school, like losing that natural abilities that I had when I was young, and it confused me. Right, I didn't really know. So I started gymming a lot around that time as well. So grade 11, grade 12, which is 16, 17, 18, and I got like aesthetic, built some muscle, a little heavier, and I was like, okay, sweet, maybe I'll be even more athletic now. But then it turned out to be the opposite. I started to get like niggles, aches, pains, until I eventually tore my ACL, which is a ligament in your knee. It's quite common, like cutting and turning on the field. Or, I tore it playing rugby. It was actually contact. Someone hit into me while I was trying to tackle them, but yeah, it snapped my ACL. Um, Also started to have some compression and episodes in my back, started to have tweaks and niggles in my shoulder, and then I dislocated my shoulder playing water polo. And I was just like, why are these injuries showing up? I'm bigger and stronger now than ever before. So yeah, it confused me. And yeah, now I was the age of 21, 22, and I dislocated my shoulder, I torn my ACL in my knee, and I was struggling with my back. And yeah, I didn't know what it was. So I just kept trying to get back to it, did the physio, did the Chiro work, saw all the specialists I could, spent like a lot of money doing it, but still didn't come quite right. So, had these niggles, tweaks, couldn't cut and turn anymore, couldn't play sport like I used to, couldn't play rugby, couldn't swim that well, couldn't play water polo. So I started doing more gym training, right? Like it's a bit more sort of controlled. You can push it, but there isn't that spontaneity, and you don't risk getting hurt. So yeah, I still wanted to push myself, so got into CrossFit. deadlifts, clean swings, snatches, and I had some, natural abilities. So, I could snatch a fair amount of weight, like, yeah, whatever it was, the numbers don't matter, but it was like 125 kilos you can snatch overhead, you can clean like 155, 160, and it's just like, oh, sweet, yeah, like I'm strong, I should be able to take anything on. And yeah, was competing in CrossFit, was my supposedly fittest. And I remember the one weekend that it changed. My friends invited me on a hike in Cape Town, right? So beautiful hike up Table Mountain. We got to the bottom, parked our cars, got set up, and I was already having some like niggles with my knee, and it still wasn't quite right. Even though I was strong, could deadlift a ton. 3 minutes into the hike, it was literally like the first 50 meters, and I like tweaked my knee, boom, and I had to turn around. I was just like, I literally couldn't go on a hike, but I was the biggest, strongest that I've ever been.
Yeah.
Lean, could hit these CrossFit workouts like nothing, could deadlift 260 kilograms, could, snatch and clean heavy weights, but I couldn't go on a hike, right? Like, what was going on? What was missing? And it was this real, like, moment that, yeah, I'm doing something wrong. I'm really, like, I didn't know what it was, but I'm doing something wrong. Physiotherapists, chiropractors, surgeons didn't really have answers. And yeah, I was just done. And started to do some rehab, got back into the gym, then tweaked my back again. And I was just like, right, I have no future in fitness. I'm not going to be able to hike. I'm not going to be able to move. So this was at the age of 23. And I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to be, pretty much, incapable throughout my life. And was worried what 40 and 50 would look like. But yeah, spent a couple of months like in that state where I was like kind of depressed, really. Realized none of the specialists, no one was coming to help me. So I started doing the research, anatomy, fascia, the way the body's supposed to move. Started to, connect with guys doing similar things, pick and choose what different coaches were already doing, and you start to get this picture. You see what the fitness industry is missing, right? And now this whole movement side of things come in, and it's beautiful. Once you understand the way the body is designed to move, you can realign your posture, your positioning, your joints. Now, instead of putting pressure on joints, you bypass the joints. That's what natural movement is about. You working with these fascial slings. We start to hear this term fascia quite often. I'm not crazy about fascia. A lot of people are like, oh, just fascia. But the fascial slings, the way the body's supposed to move, basically we bypass direct pressure on the joints. And yeah, you go far back enough, look at our evolution and childhood development. We evolved from something that was once a fish. So we had this side bending on the spine, right? Then we progressed onto land, where we now like grew limb buds and we are tetrapods, right? So now flexion and extension becomes more important because you're interacting with gravity now. So now we've got the spine that can side bend and also flex and extend. And that's where we have the spine that we have today, which can twist, right? Now, we went from crawling and we crawled as babies, and that's very important, right? But now we're bipedal, we walk on 2 feet. So our hips do an overhand motion while our shoulders do an underhand motion when we walk and run. Now, what does my spine need to do? It's hard to see when you can't see the bottom, but the spine needs to completely twist, right? And not a lot of animals do that. So we're very different. We're very special as humans. We do something different as babies as we do as adults, right? You see a baby dolphin get born, right? It sounds like I'm just going on tangents here, but you see a baby dolphin get born, and it swims right next to its mum, exactly how an adult swims, a baby swims, right? You
Yeah.
see like an antelope, like an impala, it's an antelope in Africa. And a lot of antelope are similar like this. They get born and they get to walking and running within minutes, like 10, 20 minutes, it's up running just like the adult does. You look at a bear and a mama bear and a baby bear, they move the same next to each other. Mama lion, baby lion, they move the same. Now, babies crawl, right? And even more complex than that, we first need to like take the spine and do the tummy time to get it flexed or extended instead of just flexed. We need to do tummy time. Then we sort of get our hips back and behind us. We do these like rockers where we get like our glutes ready to drive us forward. Then we start to walk. Then we eventually we start to crawl. Then we eventually progress to walking and running. Now that's so complex versus the dolphin that just like pops out and can do exactly what it does as it's born. So there's a lot of room for error, right? And as we go through, especially with modern inputs, we put babies in chairs, they're in shoes, so they get bad feedback from the ground or don't get the feedback from the ground. They, a lot of babies end up not crawling. Now, when it's time for them to walk, their patterns are flawed, somewhat flawed, and leads to compression, discomfort, pain, and that's happening more and more in the modern world as kids and teens are struggling physically, ankles, knees, hips, back, shoulders, neck, early in life. But we get back to the floor, we learn these movement patterns that we were supposed to all go through as kids, and we even relearn how to crawl and interacting with the ground, and then all of a sudden, you're moving again. But anyway, that's where my research took me, and I went a bit on, like you asked, how I got here. But basically, going through those studies and understanding this, I was like, shit, the fitness industry, the movement industry is missing a whole lot. So I started to apply this stuff for myself, and I started to get out of pain. Then I was back running long again, hiking, and now last year I did a half Ironman triathlon, like 1.9K swim, 90K bike, and 21K run. It was just like I did that at 100 kilograms. After an ACL tear, back episode, shoulder dislocation, I was able to build to a point where I could take a 100 kilogram body through that amount of work. It was just like sweet. I'm getting the stuff back, and now more challenges, whatever hikes I want to go on, adventures, travel. It's just like it's all opened up again. But like at 23, like I was done. I was like, this isn't happening for me. I was like, all these things that I wanted to do with my life, I saw closed down because I've always been like, the way I live is physical. It's here, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got my life back really, and it
Yeah.
was just such a gift. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's an amazing story. I love it. And um, you know, I can certainly relate to it. And I feel like a lot of people can too, because, when I turned 15, I got my dumbbells and my barbell and a bench. And
yeah,
I was in the basement and I was hitting the weights. And then, that progressed to constantly going to the gym, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And um, that's all fine, and you're great in the gym, and then you try and take it outside the gym and it doesn't transition to real life. It doesn't transition to what is natural, right? Because you're isolating muscles and you're um so anyways, like I certainly got into the gym side of things, and I had I've been having shoulder problems for a long time, and so you know usually injury leads people to a healthier life. And so I broke my humerus actually playing hockey. I snapped it clean in half, and I didn't get any surgery or plates or anything, and it hung there for about 6 weeks, and the bone just fused back together. But this came with a lot of rehab, of course, because I was in a cast and my arm was locked, kind of like this, right? And so that came with a lot of rehab, and so I've still been paying for it.
mm.
However, I've been led away from the gym. I don't want to go back to the gym ever again because I haven't gone to the gym in about a year, and I've been getting back into these natural movement patterns, and my body's never felt better. But, moving my spine and crawling and even spending time hanging and climbing trees and just doing things that
Yeah.
are more natural is just has really it's just been amazing. And you were actually one of the people that I discovered on this journey and have led me like, you were one of the first people that I learned about crawling and spine movement and proper running patterns and so I've had a lot of success with it. And I'll share one other story. My fiance, actually, she played varsity basketball, and so she had a lot of, and she tore her Achilles tendon, uh
Nice.
and she tore her hamstring as well. And um she had all kinds of hip pain and knee pain up until recent. And she loved to run, but running kept causing her issues over and over again. She loved to run.
Mm.
um, I put her on the Vibram 5 finger shoes, and she can run now. She has been running like 10, 13K. She's training for a half marathon now, and she's not having the hip pain and the knee pain and all this stuff. It's sore because she's working new muscles. She's sore in her feet and her calves because now she's running, as
Yeah.
close to barefoot as you can. But she's
Yeah.
also thinking about head over foot and toe striking and all of these
Mm.
little intricate things, like getting back into the natural movements. And it's just amazing because, you know, it was starting to get, you were starting to feel hopeless, right? Like she was starting to feel hopeless, and is my knee pain ever going to go away? And it was like a hike, and the hip would flare up, and so is this going to go away? And then now it's just like, even just implementing these really small changes have had profound effects. And as we implement more and more, it's just amazing. So I just love your philosophy. I love the way you got here. Your story is amazing. I could take this like, I don't know how many directions, but I want to ask about, you have a program. It's the Movement Detox, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if
No.
you want to talk about the philosophy of that, and maybe, that could spiral into, what is the proper movements? Like, what are these movement patterns? You mentioned crawling, you mentioned, what, like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just that was the coolest like 15 minutes ever, man. Like the way you related us to fish. And so anyways, I gotta let you have the floor here. So
No, I absolutely love it, and yeah, you talking about the shoulders and getting the spine moving back, hanging, learning to use that shoulder the way it's designed to throw and strike, and the crawl teaches you that. It's just it's fascinating getting this freedom back, and that shoulder can heal. Your fiance as well, getting into the 5 finger shoes, probably spending more time barefoot as well. The fascinating thing about the feet, I mean, we'll go through the whole philosophy and all of it. There's so many tools, but the feet and getting barefoot is just huge, because what a lot of people don't know is that
Mhm.
there's a sensory feedback connection. The same nerves that innervate the plantar fascia, the sole of the foot, are the same nerves, is the same nerve root that goes up into the hips and connects in the L4, L5, S1. So that's the last two lumbar vertebrae. So the last two vertebrae of your lower back and the sacrum, right? Now that is a very interesting area, and that's where a lot of people have dysfunction at their, at their hips. Their hips don't know quite know how to basically absorb the force of the ground. When your foot hits the ground, your hip needs to move back, and the same side needs to pull back to absorb the force of the ground. Now, if you don't have the right sensory feedback from your foot, let's say you're stuck in a shoe or your plantar fascia is all scrunched up, it's just going to hit the ground, and that hip is going to come behind it and just go like boom. And there's just going to be that impact. So that both of you figuring that out, it's just like it's amazing, and I'm so stoked for the both of you, because at a young age you can feel like your body's breaking down. It's just like, shit, am I going to find a solution? And then to find one so simple, it's just like, what? And it's fascinating.
Yeah, after a lot of physio as well, right? Like, I went to physio for a long time, and
Mm.
so actually kind of upsetting for me because I cycled through physiotherapists so quickly because they didn't want to deal with me anymore. I'd go in there and they would tell me, "Oh, your shoulders are fine. Like you have the normal movement." But
Yeah.
my internal rotation on one arm, I could touch my hands behind my back on this side, and I can't even come close on this side, and they're telling me
Mm.
that I'm within the normal ranges, and they don't want to deal with me anymore. They
Yeah.
don't want to deal with me reaching like this, like, you know, at
They
least the balance, at least balance between the two.
Yeah, yeah, they don't know how to help us. And my sister's a physio, and she's done a lot of research on her own. So she's very very competent. She's an amazing
Yeah,
physiotherapist.
absolutely. And not to
But then,
bash the whole profession, but just the ones
no,
like what I just it was upsetting to me working with these
yeah,
people. And so
yeah. No, but I've had the battles with her like over the years, and she's eventually like come to terms with a lot of the limitations of what they study, and seen that there are amazing, solutions out there that are outside of their scope. Because they really can't help us. I had the same frustrations, man. It's wild. Um, yeah. The amount of times I've been told like, no, you're fine. You should be fine. I don't know why you're not fine. I'm just like, it doesn't feel right. Um, but yeah, it's fun. But anyway, yeah, you mentioned I'll go the route of talking about the movement detox, and thanks for bringing it up and mentioning that. And it's been years in the making. It's been my creation to like heal myself, and now bring this to the world is just awesome. But it's just these methods. I'll talk through them. They really are. There's three categories here that I talk about, and it's just like the mobility and maintenance system of getting back to the floor and the floor resting postures. Corrective exercise techniques are still important. So the corrective exercise is somewhat like what physiotherapists prescribe. You go through a 4-step process of looking at each key area of the body: the head, neck, and jaw, shoulders and upper back, hands, and whatever it is, and you go through the corrective process to take care of these muscular imbalances. And then the biomechanics. So biomechanics based training is what I call it, is training in a way that aligns with the way we're supposed to move. When you train the upper body, you train it in a way that we crawl, climb, throw, and strike. The lower body, you train it in the patterns that we're designed to walk, run, and crawl, climb, carry as well. Um, so yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I'll go through and I can talk about each one if you're cool with
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I want to hear all about it.
Love it, love it. So the mobility and maintenance for most people, this is what we need to get back to. So the floor, as simple as sitting on the floor again, like you might not be able to see, but I'm sitting cross-legged, like I'm on the floor. I work here. Here's my desk. I've got a small little table. Um, I'm not always on the floor, but as often as I can be, I'm on the floor. And these floor seated postures, sitting cross legged, the full resting squat, and Seiza, or kneeling, I think are the big three. There's 10 in total. I'll go through them all, but this ability to sit cross legged, sit in a full resting squat and in Seiza, like we should all be able to do that. Kids can do that. Easy, no worries.
Yeah.
In certain cultures, they're still doing it. And it is a self-tuning maintenance system. So when you get back to the floor and you finally regain the mobility to get back to the floor, there's a self-tuning that happens. Your body maintains its postural alignment, and that also guides your movement patterns. When you get up and walk and run, because of the way you've been sitting and resting, you have length in the glutes and they sit back and behind you. You have length in the outer hamstrings and outer quadriceps. So, you've got this alignment in your body. And it's just amazing. So many people in the modern world, they can't sit cross-legged. They can't get down to squat and pick something up or even sit down. Like we should be able to sit down, in a squat and sit on our phone, like, read a book or something like that as we sit in a squat. Like, Seiza, this sort of kneeling position, hips back and behind us. This should be comfortable for all of us. So the big one is if you can't get to these, you spend the time. That's almost your priority. Your mobility and your maintenance work should be your priority. So, the 10 poses. If I can sort of start from the top, it's Seiza, kneeling pose like this. You can tuck your toes back and behind you, right? That one's difficult. It stretches that plantar fascia, and everything's kind of lengthened and primed and ready to go. So this toe tucked variation, you won't sit here long. This is kind of like a standby, ready to move. Um, a full squat where you're sitting heels down or heels up is like a paleo squat. Amazing. The cross-legged variations, feet together, the soles of the feet together in like a tailor's pose. Long sit, just sitting with your legs straight in front of you and your body able to sit at 90 degrees. These should all be comfortable for us. Um, Other sort of variations that are asymmetrical, one leg tucked underneath you, one leg here. This is called side saddle. Typically, typically the ladies would sit this way, or just like, you know, side saddle is very comfortable. Cowboy, one knee up, one leg tucked underneath you. We're supposed to just sit and rest this way and hang out, play cards, or read a book, whatever it was. Play cards. I'm giving away my age a bit there. I haven't played cards. You know what I mean? Right. You know, it's yeah. These would rebalance and realign us very well. These floor resting postures. So those are all based around the lower body. They really do decompress the spine and the upper body as well. But there's 4 decompression moves that I add to that, and that's a single arm hang, being able to hang like 30 seconds each arm, full grip with your feet up. That's kind of like a baseline to progress to. Some people might start 2 hands. Eventually, their feet are still on the ground supporting them, and they eventually progress to hanging on one arm. What that does for your shoulder is amazing. You can do all the rotator cuff work and all of this crazy stuff, but a single arm hang is almost the best thing that you can do. Nice, strong, full grip. Then a quadruped or a crawling pose, which is literally like you're crawling like a baby, knees below the hips, hands below the shoulders. Literally, this pose alone, putting the tongue on the roof of the mouth, chin up, stretching the neck, getting proud through the chest. You decompress through the front side of the body and the neck. Your jaw can release. You regain your natural curvature of your lower back. Your glutes start to engage back and behind you. You learn not to prime into the quads and the knee, and you get into the glutes and the hamstrings. If you tuck your toes, you can add that decompression of the calves, the Achilles, and the plantar fascia. So that one, like just being in a baby crawl pose. What I challenge you to, and like any of the listeners, like 5 to up to 15 minutes I've done, but let's say like between 3 and 5 minutes. You just close your eyes, tongue in the roof of the mouth, and you just nose breathe, nice and easy while you're in this crawl pose. The way your body will let go and find a new alignment is insane. It's insane, right? So
Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna do that. That's
yeah.
my homework. Yeah, I'm gonna try it.
Yeah. It
That's
sounds soft. I know you've done the other like rockers, and you've done a lot of these drills, but just spending time letting go, like it is huge. Yeah, it's
cool.
huge.
That's
Right.
so cool.
And then the other 2 decompressive poses, like a couch stretch. You got your lower legs up on a couch, and you're lying back, and then a forward fold, where you've got your toes just as wide as your shoulders. You're standing up on your feet and you're reaching forward for the ground. All of us should be able to like comfortably have a hinge where our hands can actually be palms flat on the ground. I mean, that's should be non-negotiable, like at least the ability to just get down there. These extreme stretches, and the reason like those mobility maintenance floor resting poses, they should guide your mobility work. You play with different variations of that, kneeling on one leg, stretch out the quads, toes tucked, move between squat variations. Amazing. Everyone's obsessed over like getting the splits, getting your head to your knee, all this extreme range stuff, these frog poses where the toes are out and your hips get, it's just wild out there. Like, but these floor resting poses, these are the only mobility postures you need. When you do the extremes, you could be all over the place, and then you land, your ankle collapses in, or your adductor is too long, so it's not supporting your knee, and you end up with a knee injury. When I work with yogis who have these extreme ranges, they have the worst biomechanics and movement patterns, some of the worst biomechanics and movement patterns. Even though a lot of them have like never been injured because they train at a very low intensity, if they start to get into running, for example, those injuries happen very quick because they have a lot of these extreme ranges, but we don't need the extreme ranges. We just need ranges that actually align our body and allow us to move correctly. So those mobility maintenance poses that I went through, that guides your movement patterns, right? And
Amazing.
yeah, if you've had serious injury, old injuries, you have serious postural asymmetries or compensations, like your shoulders are really rounded, you've got scoliosis. This is where corrective exercise is very important. So for a lot of people, corrective exercise will be important, but it's these four-step process where you go through inhibition of what is tight and overactive. So that's getting a tight muscle to relax and let go, right? Then you lengthen and stretch the short muscle. You activate what's weak and underactive, and then you integrate, right? So what a muscular imbalance is let's say my right shoulder rounds forward, right? About this shoulder joint, I have the pecs that are tight and overactive. And then I've got the muscles behind my shoulder that are long and weak and underactive, right? Now, I've got to release the pecs. That's step one. I might do foam rolling, myofascial release to release the pecs. I then stretch out the pecs. I then need to activate the rear delts, the rhomboids, everything that's back and behind me, right? Now that creates that new balance. And then integration is teaching the shoulder how to move with this new balance. So for years, my shoulder might have learned to move like this. And even if I throw and strike and press, like it's rounded forward. Now the corrective exercise releases, creates this alignment and balance. And now you need to teach the shoulder how to move in its newfound balance. And normally that'll be something like crawl work where you interact with the ground. And that's a very safe way to do that integration. But the integration can be as complex as learning how to throw differently. Like baseball players who need to learn how to throw differently, or MMA fighters or strikers, they really need to learn how to, if you're doing corrective work for them, they really need to learn how to change their strike completely, because for years they might have, been here.
Mm.
And what's beautiful with fighters, it can sometimes completely change their style to open up their body. They'll be like, yeah, I just fight so loose now. It was just like, yeah, a lot of fun. So corrective exercise, if you've had previous injuries, got niggles, aches, pains, or severe compensations, like it's an important process. It's tedious because that's like sitting on the foam roller, stretching this, doing some of the external rotator work back there, or little small little exercises. But it's important for a lot of people. If you've had previous injury, that's like, yeah, you've got to get in there.
Mm.
And that for each key area of the body, I won't go over them all, but I have corrective protocols for each key area of the body: the head, neck, and jaw, the shoulders and the upper back, the hands, the wrists, and the upper limb, right, the arm, right, the hips and the lower back, the knees and the lower limb. So I talk about the knee alone, and it's just one joint, but so many people have injuries and imbalances there that it needs its own attention. And then the feet and the ankles. So those are 6 key areas of the body, and they relate to each other, right? Like an imbalance that you could be having at your ankles and your feet could be coming from your hips. An imbalance that you have in your shoulder could be coming from the hips or could be coming from the feet. So yeah, after a postural analysis for clients, like we'll prescribe specifically where the area of dysfunction is, not necessarily where they're having discomfort and pain, but the actual dysfunctional area. So someone who's like, oh, I've rolled my ankle, but it's like, hey, that's actually coming from a dysfunction. Your right glute is holding very tight. It's that right glute and that right hip we need to sort out, and not just the ankle. Because a lot of corrective exercise or physiotherapists, for example, they'll look at the site of pain and they'll do some treatment on the actual ankle and the foot, but not the areas of true dysfunction that are leading to that. It's like treating a symptom and not the root cause, to put it simply, right? So that's
Yeah.
corrective exercise. Yeah. So we covered the floor, the maintenance system, the corrective exercise, and then biomechanics training. This is the fun stuff. Like I call it biomechanics based training because we're designed primarily to walk, run, move, crawl, climb, throw, and strike. Right? Like sure, lift, put something on the shoulders, and carry. That's important. But when we train, we need to honor the way this body is designed to move. And modern training isn't really doing that. And part of my system is actually calling out and identifying what is leading to negative inputs and what is leading to harm. Because just like you detoxifying your body, what is half of it? Half of it is taking out the crap. Then you need to eat good foods. Like half of it is taking out processed foods, seed oils, refined sugars. It's just like, if you don't do that, you're not winning the battle, right? So with biomechanics training and that detoxification process of your movement patterns, we need to take away the compressive inputs, not just in sitting in chairs all the time or poor posture, but if you're doing deadlifts, cleans, swings, snatches, you're really learning how to create force, but not how to move forwards efficiently, right? You're driving the heels into the ground, the glutes are squeezing and rotating the femurs out. But the way we're designed to walk and run and move, we're not designed to be heavy on the heel. We're going to be light on the heel. The hips need to reach back. But what lifting creates is the hips thrust forward. So if you think of a deadlift, clean, swing, or snatch, as you go to create force, the hips thrust open, right? But when you walk and run, for us to walk and run efficiently, those hips actually need to stay back and behind us, right? And that's how you're athletic. So when we train the lower body, it's always the hips stay back and behind you. We lengthen it into the glutes, and we keep the feet straight, right? And we move efficiently. In the upper body, you see the way my shoulders flow and strike.
All right, guys, a little technical difficulty here, but we're back. I hope we didn't miss too much there. But Bryan, you were talking about throwing and proper shoulder mobility. We're getting
Yeah,
in there.
so that the way the shoulders are designed to move is crawl, climb, throw, and strike. And the way it's commonly trained is we keep them quite stiff and rigid so that we shorten range of motion. You see someone bench press, they keep the shoulders externally rotated, keep the lats engaged, and then the elbows just lock out like that. And kind of the elbow locks out like a piston. And that's beneficial to create slow force production, right? And you lock out, and powerlifters benefit from that because they compress a heavier weight. But that has nothing to do with the way that shoulder actually throws and strikes, which is why you see these bodybuilders and powerlifters, they don't actually have these snappy athletic abilities outside the gym. Even someone who can bench press a whole lot might not be that quick with his hands or be able to throw without hurting his shoulder or his elbow, right? That often happens. And they get clumsy. The way we're designed to throw and strike, you see that shoulder shrugs up, and elbow rotates out, and we have that, right? So if we're going to press and do some training, let's do it in a way that honors that, right? We might press overhead and let that elbow rotate out, or you could still do some push-ups and press a dumbbell, but you keep that pressure through the outside of that palm, and you let that shoulder flow a bit, and you get a little more loose with it. This whole idea of creating as much force as we can, we lose fluidity and snappiness and athleticism. So that's why guys lose abilities outside the gym. Now, if you honor these biomechanic principles when you're training, then you can go and apply that stuff outside the gym. Like if you do an upper body section, which isn't always just upper body, it involves that movement of the spine. You will still, move, but I like to split up training upper and lower body days just for convenience. It is important, or it is beneficial, but you should finish your training and want to move, want to shadow box or do something or crawl or climb. You should feel athletic. But what do guys feel like after they do a bodybuilding session? It's just like you feel pumped up, you feel rigid, and you're neurologically connected to your muscles. This mind-muscle connection stuff where it's just like Arnold is like, feel the bump, it's just like, be inside the muscle, it's just like talking about the mind-muscle connection. And it's like, that is so off because your neurological energy goes into the muscle, into different areas of your body. So it's not in the true sense organs. So, guys walk around very rigid and stiff because their neurological energy and attention is in their different musculature, instead of just in the hands and the feet. A true athlete is connected to the balance and awareness of where their head is. Like, sure, they're connected to their body, but the sense organs are the hands and the feet, right? And if you're aware of those, you can really be athletic, snappy, whether you're interacting with the ground or you're throwing, striking. those the sense organs are amazing. And I'll go on a bit of a tangent here quick, but in our embryology, which is when the fetus is developing as when we're babies inside our mothers, right? The fetus,
Yeah.
I can't remember which week it is, but the fetus, develops, and there's something called the Wolffian Ridge, right? And the Wolffian Ridge is where all these sense organs accumulate, right? So the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, the nipples, the tip of the penis or the clitoris, and the hands and the feet all accumulate in this Wolffian Ridge, right? The anus is the other one. They all accumulate in this Wolffian Ridge. And when we evolve or grow, they move into their different parts. But the fact that the hands and the feet are in this Wolffian Ridge was very key to me, because they are as important as our eyes, nose, mouth, so they guide the way the body moves. So those feet guiding the hips, those hands guiding the shoulders, so important. So us like reconnecting to our hands, letting go of tension you're holding elsewhere in your body, whether it's through muscular tension because you've been a bodybuilder, or you don't even need to be a bodybuilder to hold that tension. If you have poor posture, you hold tension on the front side of your body, your biceps, your chest, your abdominals, right? So you have that neurological tension that you waste there. If you can decompress the body, you will let go of this tension, and now it's your hands, your feet, and you can just flow and move again, right? So it's very beneficial to let go of that tension, realign your body. And then also someone who's had an injury, if you've had an injury, like how much energy and attention kind of goes into that shoulder, that it detracts from everything else you're doing, to the point where it could be a hindrance. If you're like, oh, my shoulder, you're not ready to do anything else. So it's very important that if we have that injury, even old injuries, we break up that scar tissue through corrective work, through myofascial release, and then you get it moving again. You decompress the body so you can just think of your hands, your feet, and you can just play again, right? You see kids and they're just like, oh, what's going on? Where's the ball? Or, whatever it is, whatever task they're doing. They don't hold tension in their body. So we need to move away from that in our training, like holding tension in the muscles, creating force just so that a muscle can expand and grow. It's a waste. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of your effort and your energy. Yeah. So it's a bit of a statement, because there's a lot of people who dedicate a lot of their lives to doing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But it's an important conversation too, and I love the perspective that you take and how you tie it into everything. And so it's like some people love it, eh? They love the bodybuilding. So is it like, can you never do it? Is that is
No.
that the is that what you're
Yeah,
saying here?
yeah.
Or
I think you can train, like, I still train with weights, right? Like, I still press and move, but it's always honoring biomechanics. I still like lunge, but it's in a way
sure.
that I have this intent of moving forwards, right? Um, I'll press or do
Yeah.
push-ups, but I'll back up, not be able to do as many push-ups or as heavy weight, and I'll just stay explosive, because that's the ability that I want. I want to keep the fluidity, and then the only actual, you
Mm.
know, pressing that's important to me is if that can be an explosive strike, right? Like, other than crawling or climbing,
Hmm.
when else do you actually press like that? I mean, sure, pressing yourself off the ground, like, sure, but it's kind of, yeah, you rather be lighter, explosive than move improperly. And it depends on where you're at as well. I mean, if you've got poor posture and you've had
Yeah,
shoulder injuries,
that's a good point.
avoid it completely, at least until you've got that freedom back. But if you're moving really well and you've come back to those
Yeah.
patterns, then you can add some of that lifting on top of that. You could still bench press, you could still, you know,
Hmm.
do the pull-ups, and that's all fine. But you've got to build a big base. And to me, I see this like hierarchy in this pyramid. And at the very bottom is the floor resting posture. It's the ability to rest on the floor, right? That's almost like a prerequisite. And then it's efficient movement patterns in straight line movement. So being able to walk, run long, very efficiently in these fluid movement patterns. Have the head lining over the foot, fluid spine, straight feet, hips back, all that good stuff. If you got that in check, then you have the agility, the ability to cut and turn, explode, sprint, jump, and land, right? Now you can build that on top, right? Now your agility, your cutting, turning is very fluid and safe. Great. Now you can add lifting, striking, throwing, even combat sports. You're doing jiu-jitsu. You mentioned that you're doing taekwondo. Keen to hear how that's going. But that's all up top after you've built this big base and this pyramid, right? So I see lifting all the way, as in like bench press and deadlifts. I see them all the way up there. Like I still would like to be able to deadlift 200 kilos and know that I can do that, but I'm not going to do it often enough that it starts to go and destroy my base, because it will. If you do that stuff often enough, it destroys your ability to sit and rest on the floor and your efficiency in walking and running. And then you're narrowing your base, and now you're a very unstable pyramid, right? And you could topple over, and toppling over could mean injury, wear and tear, breakdown of the body. So yeah, it's very important. If you want to do that fancy stuff, build a big base, and that's available. So yeah, you can do it.
Great. That's great. No, that's really cool perspective. Honestly, I love it, and I love the pyramid analogy. And you liken it to a detox. You mentioned earlier. You said the two components of detox is kind of cutting out the bad and then feeding the good, right? So it's like
Yeah,
you got to feed the good, and so it's not like you can never have a cheat day or something processed
yeah,
or whatever. Like we do live in the modern world, and um, so it's like, yeah, it depends on your goals too, I suppose, how pure you want to be. And so some people never, ever, ever want to have anything like that. But I mean, if you have like, one McDonald's fries one day, it's not gonna kill you, right? As long as you have that underlying base, that strong foundation, and you're nourishing yourself properly, these things aren't gonna come in and just, I always find fast food really does make me feel like crap the next
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Yeah, so I kind of phased it out completely. But if I'm gonna have like, you can have you got to be able to enjoy and to do what you want to do, and it depends on your goals too. But I love this. You need the strong foundation, right? So you need to
Mm.
address this foundation. And the way you have these 10 resting postures, that's something that I'm trying to get into more. I'm sitting in a chair right
Yeah,
now, you know, I can feel my glutes are like I just feel through this conversation they're not in the right position, they're not
mm.
lengthened, I'm not sitting
Yeah,
properly, right? Like they're not these are designed for comfort and not for what is natural. And so I always say the comfort
right.
kills. You get too comfortable, and if you're gonna sit all the time, 24 like 24 hours a day, 8, 10, 16 hours a day is not unlikely for people, right? They go from work at their 9 to 5 job, and then maybe it's a desk job, and then you go sit on the couch for 7 hours, and you eat supper at the table, and then you go to sleep, and maybe you sleep on your
Yeah,
stomach, and so that's everything's all
yeah,
messed up. You need that strong base.
100%. Yeah, we must get your podcasting station down on the floor from episode 13 on,
Yeah,
I reckon. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure it'll happen
yeah.
at some point. So, what about a standing desk? Is a standing like a good option for? Do you want to be standing for these long periods of time, or is it really resting on the floor is better if you're going to be doing work at on a computer
Yeah,
or something?
yeah, I think because the floor is a self-tuning and a reset, that is the most positive. But you don't want to just stay there, right? Like you've seen, like I've kind of shuffled around between different positions.
Yeah,
You don't have to stay in any one position. And much like you can be down on the floor, then you can be seated for a bit, and then you can be standing up. It's when you have a crazy bias towards one that there's a problem. And you see, like today, you think of a modern man's. You spoke earlier. You come back from work, sit on the couch, go to bed. Think of from the moment someone wakes up after they've now rested. they get out of bed and they slide their feet off the edge of the bed. And what is that? That's a seat, right? Like it's at seat height. Then you go, maybe you go to the toilet, right? Seat height. You go sit at the coffee table, seat height, and have your breakfast. You go to work, another chair. Maybe if you're lucky, you have time to go to the gym, and then you sit on the pec deck machine, and it's the same thing, seat height. No one gets down to the floor and touches our floor resting posture. So like it's got to be implemented somewhere. And there's, at meal time, sitting and resting, breaks, actual mobility sessions that get you down to the floor. That's really good. And yeah, it's just really important because we have this bias towards the seat height. But the standing desk isn't bad if you're kind of flowing one side to the other. There's a couple of people who are starting to make a desk that actually reclines, or reclines and ascends from standing height, and it can be any height you want, from all the way down here to all the way up there. So I've been trying to look out for one of those, but I've just got a couple of different options in my office here. So yeah, play around with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I want to get your thought. I know we're approaching the 1 hour.
Yeah, I love it. So how are you feeling with time?
I'm doing good. We could go for we could go for 20 more minutes. Probably we could go for a whole lot longer, I'm sure, but we'll cut ourselves off there.
No pressure.
I want to know your thoughts on osteopathy, massage, chiro. We touched on physio, how maybe the corrective exercises have a time and a place. And I personally have had a lot of success with osteopathy. Now, I really do think it comes down to the practitioner too, because my osteopath is telling me about primal movements and crawling and all of these things that we're talking about now. So I really think she's tuned in with the natural movements. I can't speak for all osteopaths, but that's been my experience. It's been really positive, and even the body work is very subtle, and the philosophy that she speaks to me about how it's really like it's about these small releases and how the hips and the shoulders are connected, and even that can manifest in the neck, and how if you have a slight you're imbalanced and your neck is off, well, it likely starts at maybe the hips, and then it go down to the feet. And so I like that perspective. I don't know. I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on maybe osteopathy and maybe massage and chiro, because you'd mentioned chiro earlier. I don't know what your perspective was on it, so I want to give you the floor to maybe talk about stuff like that.
Love it. Yeah, I mean they're all amazing practitioners, and they dedicate to their craft. So respect to them, and they know things that I don't know. So I haven't gone through all the studies. When my sister went through physiotherapy school, I did get all her anatomy and physiology. I studied as she went through it as well. I studied the anatomy, physiology, so I have some insight into what they study, at least the physiotherapists. But the osteopaths, the craniosacral therapists, like amazing stuff that I see. I know some of them even work with the energetics of the body that I really don't understand. I've seen an osteopath, 2-3 times, and I'm just fascinated by what they learn. What they see. I'm just there to learn and listen. Even those who do acupuncture, the traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, amazing stuff. I don't understand it all. I'm not going to pretend to, but there's just something there in those practices that have been around and treating people successfully for thousands of years, like traditional Chinese medicine. And they are working beautifully, and those practitioners, they claim that what is being mapped. So the Chinese meridian map is what acupuncture works with. So they map these meridians of the body. I think you might know this, but for your audience, it's just like there's various lines around the body that don't follow the lines of where muscles lie, or even fascia, or even our veins or our circulatory system. When Western doctors dissect where the meridians are supposed to be, they see nothing. So they're like, oh, this is rubbish. but the tradition, but there's something to it. Like it's working. Now the Chinese claimed and thought that what they were mapping was blood flow and qi. So we know from our understanding of the circulatory system that it's not blood flow. That's not where blood flows. We understand the circulatory system well enough to know it's not that. Like chi is very elusive. It's this energy. It's just like, yeah, it may very well be it. But one amazing practitioner, his name is Philip Beach, and he wrote a book called Muscles and Meridians. And he, from a somewhat Western perspective, tried to understand the Chinese meridian map, and he studied it and went through it. And he thought that what they're trying to map was actually lines of contractility. So when you respond to a stimulus, you can have a whole body response. Like your body knows how to adjust and manipulate to avoid like any tension. Like if a needle touches you here, your entire body knows how to react instantaneously. So there's these contractile lines that the body follows, and I think that's what the Chinese meridian map is actually mapping, because they use acupuncture to change the way you're holding tension in the body, and you have these beautiful releases. So I think they're working with that. But that's just my take on the traditional Chinese medicine. And like, yes, it works. Yes, we don't understand it, but there's something to it. And that's what I think about all of them. Even the chiropractors, I don't really know what they're doing when they click and pop, and it's just like, are they really making alignments and adjustments? Are your joints actually going back into alignment and play? It's just like, there's some people who don't think that's the case, but they're definitely doing manipulation and adjustments that seem to be positive, and people get great results from it. So whenever you're getting great results from, great. I trust the ones that have been around a while. So the traditional Chinese medicine and the Chinese map, there's something to it. So even in my own studies, I'm trying to like dive deeper into what they're actually mapping there and how they manipulate the body. So yeah, just love all the practices and respect them all. And even, I don't mean to have spoken down on anyone in this, in this podcast here, like, talking about physiotherapists and chiropractors earlier. The fascial massage therapists are doing something amazing. The way they, manipulate the fascia and track the tension through your body. I don't know if you've ever had a massage from a fascial specialist. Yeah, well, when I had that treatment, they just know how to track the lines of tension in the body to find this root cause. It's just amazing. And just like it's like the way your body naturally adjusts something. So if you feel a tweak between your shoulder blades, you don't just like, your whole body knows how to kind of torque to get the exact spot, right? You know exactly how to get the spot that and they just know how to do that from feeling your body and where the fascia is holding tension. So the fascial massage therapists, which I believe some of the best are in Canada. You guys have amazing, what do you call it, education programs for massage therapists. So yeah, check it out. Find yourself a good massage therapist out there.
Yeah, and I mean it's all about results too. I like the way you put that because it's like,
Mm.
um, you hear a lot of, it's difficult, right? It's like, I haven't had much success in physiotherapy, but at the same time, the physiotherapy took me from, um, my broken arm to a state where I could, play hockey again and move, and I was, I'm fine. I could go to the gym, right? That was my goal at the
Yeah,
time, right? It was to get back into the
yeah,
gym. And so, it's not like you can't blame any practitioners for your
no,
problems either,
neither.
right? We're taking responsibility here about our own bodies, right? And how we're the experts on our
Yeah,
own bodies.
yeah,
And I think it's a really important thing because, at the time when I was working with the physiotherapist, it was all about getting back into bodybuilding, getting back
mm,
into the gym. And so, that's what they did. they got me back into the gym, and now I was looking for something more. I was looking for a more perfect balance in my body. Now I'm working with an osteopath who's really helping me with that, and obviously doing a lot of research on my own and kind of just listening to my own body. But it always comes down to yourself
Yeah.
too. Like it comes down to you getting on the floor. You know, you got to get out there. You got to change. It's a lifestyle change too, right? If we're constantly in this seated position, as you highlighted, a beautiful story of how we're always in this seated
Mm.
position.
Yeah.
You know, you got to take responsibility for that. You know, there is no practitioner that's gonna get that out of you from an hour a week or
Yeah.
whatever. So I think that's really important. I think that's a really important
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. You got to give yourself the power back. And when you give these practitioners too much power and expect them to save you, you become lazy yourself. You just sit there and you don't move anywhere. It's like us giving doctors the power over our health. And it's just like we're realizing you guys actually don't know shit. Like we're going to reclaim our health ourselves. And that's the way it's been working. Got little Nala saying hi. She's been sleeping. But yeah, no problem.
Sleepy, yeah.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
been good.
yeah, stay in. But yeah, it's it's our responsibility to get our health and our movement back, and it's simple. And you know, you learn these practices and principles, and it's 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 simple. And the way I work with clients is just like I want to teach you these tools so you can take care of yourself. The worst thing is someone wanting you to rely on them. So just like getting in the healthcare system and being reliant on the meds. It's just like you're in the system now and you're not getting out. But you learn how to eat right yourself, how to take care of yourself, how to get outside, breathe, meditate, ground. It's just like you don't need anyone else, and that's what these tools are. Is you learn how to get back in connection with the floor. You learn the corrective exercise techniques and your specific imbalances. You learn how to train in a way that aligns with our biomechanics, and you get the power back. And yeah, that's what it is. Anyone who's doing anything meaningful and they truly want the best for someone is just like you teach them how to take care of themselves. You teach the man to fish. You don't just keep giving him fish, right? Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. No, that's perfect. That's what we're all about here. All about responsibility, and that's really in all of health. When I think of health, it's
Mm.
responsibility too, right? It's like you don't want to blame other people. You can't blame other people. You can't blame other things because
Yeah,
it all comes down
yeah,
to you. So, any final thoughts, Brian?
yeah. No, just Thanks for having me on, man. And it just you mentioned something that is worth coming back to. Is just like you can't keep chasing comfortable, right? And the things we know, the conveniences, um, you know, sitting up in the chairs all the time. It's just these conveniences are hurting us. Like not taking care of your own nutrition, your own food. Even to the point where you're hopping on, just deciding to just watch Netflix or scroll through reels, do what's comfortable, and keep giving yourself that high instead of going to work out and do something uncomfortable. And it's just getting the ball rolling and realize, especially as men, doing something uncomfortable, how much that gives you. Something that's positive and uncomfortable. And I wanted to bring it back to you and your cold plunges, right? You're doing them out in the sea off the islands there. You and your fiance were jumping in the sea, and that's the videos I first saw of you. I was just like, that is the perfect example. You get comfortable with doing uncomfortable things that are positive for you and lead to a good response, and then you build that willpower slowly. And the reason I mentioned that, and the reason I mentioned specifically men, is because men need this most, especially us young men. We're being, our problems, we're being told to take care of them somewhat like we might, the ladies might thrive. Think about it, talk about it, like dive deep into your feelings and go back in time and, immerse in these feelings and understand the root. Sometimes we're upset or we're pissed off because we're not doing anything challenging, and we're born to get out there, do something challenging every day, go and conquer something, thrive, and yeah, get out there, hike a hill, move. And if you're losing those abilities to do that physically, that can be a tough place. But that's where you know this sort of information comes in handy. So yeah, bit of a tangent there, but just yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but just like not seeking comfort is just like we're not made for it, man. We're not made to being comfortable all the time.
Yeah. To producing
Yeah,
something, instead of you want to produce more than you consume. I think that
right.
would be a note that I put on. And this, we might have to circle back to this in the next episode, you and I do down the road, because that this could be a whole discussion in
Yeah,
itself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I'm doing one of
You
those
know,
cliffhangers. You leave them hanging, ready for the next episode.
yeah. Hey, that's perfect. That's perfect. Well, that means we gotta have you back on, so that's
I
fine.
appreciate that, and thank you. And it was really great, and you're a great host. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I want you to, before you go, I want you to tell the listener where they can follow you and how they can
Oh, I
support
love
your
it.
work.
Appreciate that. So on Instagram at fit.coach_Bryan is the easiest place to find me. And then you'll reach out from there. But yeah, it's Bryan Michelson, Bryan with a Y. Yeah, and fit.coach_Bryan on Instagram is the easiest spot. Right.
We'll put a link to in the notes here in the show
Love it.
notes.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, great. No, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate this. This was a fantastic discussion.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Lee. All right. Cheers, man.
All right, now I want to thank you, the listener. You should all know that this is not medical advice. This is for your informational purposes only. Also, remember, we're responsible, sovereign beings capable of thinking, criticizing, and understanding absolutely anything. So always keep that in mind. We're responsible for our own well-being. We always get back to that in every episode for some reason. So that's a central topic. That's central. We the people and the greater forces are together self-healers, self-governable, self-teachers, and so much more. Please reach out if you have any questions, criticism, comments, concerns, anything. Reach me at beyond.terrain on Instagram. And listen, I really truly appreciate everyone that took the time to listen. This honestly was one of my favorites so far. It's just getting better, guys. So um, yeah, if you enjoyed the podcast, found it informative, give us a like, share, comment, review, subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do on whatever platform you're listening to, and that'll help me. And that's the best way you can support me. So uh, just remember, guys, there's two types of people in the world: those who believe they can, those who believe they can't, and they're both correct. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care.